Well, stormaudio released the firmware. Apparently, you can't, as a, I hate the word end user. I absolutely hate that word already. Uh, you got to request either from an installer so you can install the firmware so that no mishandling from what stormaudio said from someone called Julia. Says that they protect their interests with their firmware, blah blah blah. Um, they just don't want some mishandling of or bad handling of the install, so they want it to say like install kind of thing. Yeah, and it's just waiting on an installer to contact you back saying, yeah, okay, it's no problem, and they probably give you the and then you got to use something called a client portal. So then when you get onto there, you got then access, and then you go then to the firmware, and then it's got to be saved onto the computer, and then you go over to the firmware update, select, browse it for the firmware, and then install it, and then just wait until it's loaded, just like any other firmware. Just like any other firmware, I never had this hassle from Denon, even though it's not really used there anymore. It's only used for a different sort of purpose. But really, it's like there's some sort of conspiracy going on here. It's like, huh? What? I purchased that, just as anyone else purchased theirs, and you don't get you know, crying out loud. What? The firmware doesn't get sort of like automatically loaded. Ah, so all this hype for the, it's all the hype for the, you know, the Dirac Live art. I mean, active room treatment. Well, this is real treatment on the wall, but I mean, it's just an equalizer at the end of the day. Um, Depending on how many bands it's got or how many bands can be selected per channel. Even though I still think there should be around about 20,100. So they go all narrow band frequencies all the way right down to, from the highest all the way down to the infrasonic. Because there are bass shakers, or whatever. This is just nonsense to wait. Oh, crying out loud. Anyway, I'm not going to lose any sleep over it, so I'll just wait. I just think it's a blimmin' outrageous that, I mean, they make a lousy looking processor for starters. I mean, they go through all the other different Mark 1, Mark 2s, etc. I mean, this display, for example, should have been a touch screen. They should have had format video modes up here or something to select, and then audio modes to then quickly select. I mean, it's all kind of push button sort of thing on the other sort of processors, but touchscreen. Um, a headphone socket should have been on there as well. As well as proper Dolby Matrix, decoder to fall back. Say if anyone's got Laserdisc, can use a proper 424 Matrix decoder rather than the Dolby DSU, because that's a totally different sort of thing, and it just doesn't sound that right. It just does not sound right, and it's still got a flaw with the center channel. When you use it, it's got a whooshy, phasey. It's a mess. Yeah, you go over to DDS neural up next, matrix decoder, and it's not a problem. In fact, it's similar-ish to using one of these or switching over to the CP750, whether I use a matrix decoder on the SDDS, because that's got a matrix decoder on it as well, or the CP500 or the CP200 or the basically the Cat 150, which is the same in these Cat 150. Different versions, 150s, A, B, C. I think it's C, D, and E, or is it C, D, and E, F? I forget which. They got several versions. Anyway, this is just bullshit that you gotta wait for I gotta wait for a phone call back, and if I don't get another one, I'll pop. I tell you what, I feel intimidated. I feel intimidated by Storm Audio. The only difference with owning a Storm Audio, alright, it's a little bit cheaper than the Trinoff. I tell you, if Trinoff pull the same act with this, if they do the same act, then really, that's just not on. That's like buying a car, you own it, and it's like, oh, you don't have the right to put bloody petrol in it, which is the same with the firmware. I got to put firmware petrol into the processor. This is what I feel like. That's what I feel like. I can't feel that mood. I feel like that mood. Thank you, Storm Audio, for